Mr. Potty's plums. Mr. Potty looked at his plum tree. It was covered in big, fat plums. Mr. Potty licked his lips. He loved plums, but so did the birds. Every day, Mr. Potty came and looked at his plum tree. Soon the plums would be ready for picking. "Yum, yum," said Mr. Potty. "Chirp, chirp," happily sang the birds. One morning, Mr. Potty saw some plums lying on the ground. They were half eaten. Mr. Potty looked around. He saw 7 birds sitting on the wire. He thought. Early next morning, Mr. Potty crept up to his plum tree. There were the 7 birds having a feast. "Shoo, shoo," he said, waving his arms. The birds flew onto the wire. Mr. Potty knew if he didn't do something, he wouldn't have any plums left. That afternoon, Mr. Potty went into his shed. He banged and hammered. When he came out, he was carrying a scarecrow. "Now," he thought, "this will frighten away those greedy birds." The next morning, Mr. Potty hurried to his plum tree. Around the scarecrow lay more half-eaten plums. "Right," said Mr. Potty to the birds. "Just you wait." Again, Mr. Potty went into his shed. This time he came out carrying an old blanket. "This will stop you," he said. He fetched the ladder and climbed into the plum tree. He tried to spread the blanket over the branches instead. Mr. Potty got so tangled up in the blanket he tumbled onto the ground like a ripe plum. "Ouch!" he said. "Chirp, chirp," happily sang the birds. That night, instead of going to bed, Mr. Potty sat in his chair. How could he keep those birds away from his plums? If he didn't think of something, they would have the lot. That would mean no plum pies, no plum jam, no plum cakes, and no fresh, fat plums to eat. Oh dear, he sighed. Then, just as the sun was rising, Mr. Potty had a brilliant idea. He picked up his backpack and went outside to the sunflower tree. He climbed to the first sunflower and collected half the seeds from the flower head. Then he did the same to all the other sunflowers. After he had collected the seeds, Mr. Potty hurried back to his kitchen, where he made a special mixture. As soon as he had finished, he went outside. He ignored the 7 birds pecking at his plums. Mr. Potty took one of the 7 sunflower seed balls and tied it to a tree far away from the plum tree. He whistled as he worked. "There," he said. 2 days later, Mr. Potty took his biggest basket up to the plum tree. Not one plum had been touched, but the 7 sunflower seed balls were almost finished. "Excellent," said Mr. Potty. Later, the smell of plum jam, plum puddings, and plum cakes drifted up to the 7 birds. sitting on the wire. Mr. Potty sat and ate his fresh fat plums. "Perfect," he said. "Chirp, chirp," sighed the birds. Thank you for watching. Bye.